You know, when we look at the Christian church and Christianity, it transformed society, it transformed the world. 12 men, a number of dedicated women, just a yakufta of individuals, a small group of people, and they transformed the world. The empire changed. Byzantium is known as one of the highlights of history. It was an empire founded on belief of Jesus Christ and founded on piety of the Theotokos. How did these people change society? What was it that made Christianity, Orthodoxy, what did they do that was so appealing to people? We see today people are running away from Christianity. The numbers are getting smaller and smaller. The Orthodox Church in this country is disintegrating. Tragedy. But we can change that if we go back to our roots, to our raíces, and find out what it was that made Christianity so appealing, so powerful. If you look at the church fathers, they give us the answer. They say that what transformed the world, the fire of faith, they say, was the flame of joy. Hara. We say today, Evangelizate yikara negali. Today is the Evangelion. Evangelismos tis charas, the hymns say. In other words, this is the evangelismos of joy. As a matter of fact, during Great Lent, whenever this day falls, it just so happens that it's on a Sunday today, this year. Typically it does not fall on a Sunday, but anytime it falls, it is the only day of the entire 72 days of the Triodion where you can eat fish along with Palm Sunday. You can eat oil and fish. You can break the fast today because imeras tis charas, the day of joy. That's what transformed the world. The world was in sorrow, in pain, just like it is today. And all of a sudden they see these people smiling, joy, happiness, hope, and it was contagious. And so they followed. And before you know it, they transformed the world with joy, with hara. This morning I came early, very early, and I came to the altar, then in the office, and I was looking through the books, and I found Father Payatis' Akatis dos Himnos book. I found it. His name was on it, opened it up, and for some reason he was almost talking to me through his book, and he said, "Count, Father Frank, how many times the word here is in the Akatis dos Himnos." I wasn't planning on it, but I did it. 171 times we say here at the Akatis dos Himnos. So think about that. We did the first stasis, the second stasis another Friday, the third stasis, the fourth stasis, and then the whole thing again on Friday. On Friday it was 171, but if you add all those other ones, wow. How many days do we focus on hara, on joy, on love? And then we look today. And unfortunately we find many Greek Orthodox Christians, because I can only speak about us, our family. It's my responsibility to talk about our family. Someone else can look at other churches. It's not my business. But when I look at our churches, and as I said, I think I can speak pretty authoritatively because I've traveled all over the country and visited many, many churches. Many churches. And one of the things that make me sad is how most parishes are woe is me. Oh, Father. That's what I always hear. So how are you? Hasta pumekala. I remember somewhat funny story. I was my first diaconia was in Houston, Texas. Again, Evangelismos, Theotokos was the name of the church. Very large cathedral. I started off as the 4th priest and ended up as the 1st priest for a while before I left. I was too young. And I remember going to the Houston Cardiac Center, very large medical center in Houston, huge. And many Greek people from Greece would come, and we would minister to them at the Theotokos Society. Could not speak English, so we would do all the translating for them. And I remember going to visit a young boy, 5 years old, couldn't be more than that, and he had heart surgery. I saw him before surgery, we saw him afterwards, and then I went into his room. He was sitting in a chair, watching television, 5-year-old boy, just like a little Greek man, a little Greek old man sitting there. And I said, "Πώς αισθάνεσαι σήμερα?" And he said, "Pater, hasta που με καλά." A 5-year-old boy. What has happened to us? Where is the chara? Where is the joy? Where is the power of the evangelismos of the Greek people? This is what transformed the world, and it can still transform the world. But we need to learn to be smiling, to be happy, and not to allow ourselves to be sorrowful all the time. Yes, we need to repent. We need metania. We need to be serious people. But at the same time, we have hope and we have joy. Rejoice, the angel says. A few weeks ago, literally days ago, you know what happened not too far from here. Costa goes there quite often. The International College, university there. A span, a bridge. I looked to see how heavy it was. It was 950 tons. And they built it somewhere else. They wanted to save money. Sound familiar? Yeah. They wanted to save money. They brought it there. They didn't build it there. They built it somewhere else. They brought it and they lowered it, they adjusted it, and it spanned across 8 lanes. Think about that, it's a long span, 8 lanes. And the reason why they built the bridge was because last August, an 18-year-old boy was crossing, trying to cross, and was killed by a car. And so they said, we can't have that. We're going to build this bridge, this walkway, and the students will be able to carefully and safely cross. And yet, you know what happened. They began to tighten. They saw there was an issue. It collapsed. And how many people died? 6 people died, unfortunately. Why? We have begun to realize that by trying to save money, the cabling was not as strong as it should be, and they used the wrong bolts. And so when they began to tighten the bolt, of course, the bridge collapsed. I share that with you because in the Akathistos hymnos and in the hymns of the church, which I said last night is the university of our faith, the Panagia has many appellations, many names, many titles. And on Friday night I preached that she is the star. She always has 3 stars on her body, always. She was virgin before, during, and after. So anytime you see the Panagia, look carefully, you will always find 3 stars. And in the Akathistos, Astera, she's called. Yesterday, last night, I talked about the Panagia in the hymns, and she's Ravdos Mystiki. Ravdos Mystiki, the rod of Aaron. The rod of Aaron that bloomed and had beautiful flowers that came from it. And that's why you see many of the flowers missing, because we gave flowers out to those who came to the great Vespers, because she continues to give a gift to this point. And under Ravdos are the almonds. And because of the almonds, we put almonds in the koliba to remind us that we go back to paradise through the Ravdos Mystiki. Today, the hymns call her Yefida, the bridge. I don't know if you know that. Simonon Charas Evangelia, today we announce the joy. The heavens rejoice with the earthly. Yefida metagusa tus enigis pros uranon. She is the bridge by which we traverse and we cross over. Just like this bridge was built to protect those individuals who were walking and it fell. Every time you go by that bridge, you should think of the Panagia and say to yourself that through her, God became man and connected us. And through her, we traverse, we cross over nicely from this world into paradise. A beautiful appellation of the Panagia, Yefira. This Yefira is joy. And if this bridge breaks, then we have no joy. We have no joy. In the icona, to Evangelismo, you see there the stars, you see there the Ravalos being held by Gabriel, and you see why she's called the Yefira. If you know carefully to look, she always is holding yarn. Yarn. As a small virgin, when she went into the temple, they drew lots. There were many virgins in the temple. They drew lots to see what each virgin would do. And it fell to her that she would sew, not kendisi, not sew, what's kendima? To knit. Yeah, the veil. So in the Jewish tradition, there was a veil, like the iconostasio that we have. And that's why we have a cortina, a veil, sometimes that crosses over there, to remind us that once upon a time, there was a division between God and man. We could not cross over. And so we were sad. We could not cross over. And this is the reason why I asked the Psalti, Stelios, which he did so beautifully, to sing for you the hymn that comes from the Psalms that we hear in the monasteries during Great Lent. I'm sure you don't even know it and you don't know the story. Ebi don Potamon Babylonus. By the river Babylon, we sat and wept. And we took our harps and we put them on the willow. And we looked toward Jerusalem and we wept, thinking about our past land. And we sing it in the church to remind us there was a time in which we, like the Jews, were separated from God. We were separated from our homeland because the Jews, as you know, the temple of Jerusalem was destroyed and they were taken into bondage and brought to Babylon. Just like the Greeks that went through Greek independence, they were enslaved. And when they were enslaved, the harp, which for the Jews represented joy, they took their harps and they didn't play them anymore. They hung them on the willow trees by the river Babylon and they sat down and they cried. Wow, what powerful imagery that is. And the church fathers knew how to play the Psalms well. And they said, we're going to put that in the liturgy during Great Lent, so that when our people hear that, it will remind them that, you know, although we have a bridge now and we can traverse and go to heaven through the Panagia, if you don't celebrate right, if you're not right with God, you know what can happen? The bridge can collapse. You will lose your joy, your hara, and you will take your harps and you will hang them on the willow tree. And then you will say, woe is me. Hasta Pumekala. The Jews got their harps back, and they went back to Jerusalem, and they rebuilt the temple. You know that. You know the story. They went back. But what is indicative here, and this is quite significant for us, when the Jews were brought into bondage, there was about 15,000 of them. While they were in Babylon, the Jewish nation grew to 150,000. So originally the exiles were only 15,000. They grew to 150,000. And when they were given permission to go back to their homeland, less than 50,000. 100,000 of them said, you know, it's nice here, we'll just stay here. That can happen spiritually if we're not careful. If we're not careful, we like it the way it is. We don't want to change. We don't want to learn. We don't want to grow. before you know it, we live in bondage with our harps hanging on the willow tree, and we do not have the joy. Because you know what? This world will never give you joy. Your health will never always be good. Your finances will not always be good. Your job will not always be there. Our children, our parents, our spouse might not always be there with us. We will have sorrow in this world. Thank God we have the Banahia so that we can have joy. Let me end, because I don't want to tire you. There is a legend in the Jews. By the way, you know that David, Saul, the king, wanted David all the time to be near him, because when Saul was sorrowful, when the king was sorrowful, and he was depressed, he said there was only one thing that would bring joy to his life: to listen to David sing while he played his harp. That's why the harp is important. And that's why we have the harp on many icons, and we think sometimes that in heaven we play harps, the angels play harps. That's where it comes from, that the harp represents joy to us. But anyway, the story is that a prince received as an inheritance from his father a harp. It was an antique, and it was always covered in his house. But he received it from his father, and he had it in his house, beautiful harp covered with white, and he tried to find someone to tune it, someone who could play it, and no one in the empire knew. Then one day there was a knock on his door, many years later at night, and an elderly man was looking for shelter. And the prince said, "Come in." And as they were eating, the old man looked over and he said, "Is that a harp?" He says, "Yes." And the elderly man went over to it, he took off the white covering, and he tuned it, and he began to beautifully play the harp. And everyone in the home came into the room and was just amazed as to how beautiful that instrument really sounds. 10-stringed harp. And the prince said to the elderly man, "How is it that you know how to tune and play the harp?" And the elderly man said, "I never thought I would see it again, but I made that harp when I was a young man and gave it to your father." That's what we need. That's what Pascha is about. That's what the Evangelismos is all about. It is to reacquaint ourselves with the maker of the harp of our heart, so that no longer are we focused on being woe Christians, but we look at Christianity from the point of view of, wow, it is a great religion. A religion of chara, a religion of rejoicing. My prayer is that the Lord will be with you, bless you and your community and your family, and always give within your heart and your soul the evangelismos tis charas. Please rise.